Hi everyone, and welcome to the Magnify conference opener. I'm really excited to send you this video today to get the conference started. My name is Claudia Hopkins, pronouns she, her, and I am one of the conference organizers and the founder. In my full-time job, I am a designer that specializes in health design, and I have a keen interest in inclusive design specifically. As for my visual appearance, I am a white woman with shoulder-length hair and big brown glasses. I've also been told many times that I would make a good cartoon character based on my glasses alone. I'm wearing a red jumper and sitting in a white room with a few plants behind me. Throughout this video, I hope to set the scene for what Magnify is about. I will start with a land acknowledgement, and then I will explain why inclusive design from my personal perspective. I will then pay credit to the wider Magnify team and other people who I owe my thanks. I will then give you some introductions to our speakers and workshop facilitators too. So you may be wondering, what is a land acknowledgement? Well, land acknowledgements are practiced across the world at public gatherings in places known as Canada, New Zealand, and Australia to acknowledge the ongoing colonialism and genocide. Within land acknowledgements, the Indigenous peoples who have stewarded the land for generations are recognized. In each of our events, we will practice these because it is essential to recognize our connection to land and the power structures that exist. I am in London, England, and London has been at the heart of where many of the decisions were made to inflict genocide across the world. And England still benefits from its colonial influence, past and present. This has not only had an immense effect across the globe, including places where there is ongoing genocide, but it also affects people within the UK due to systemic racism and inequality. For those who have never heard of a land acknowledgement, you may be wondering, why is this relevant to this event? Well, an essential part of a land acknowledgement is also identifying action. As design and research practitioners, we need to be aware and honest about our positionality in the world and in our societies, and to carefully consider how our skills and approaches can disrupt or reinforce power imbalances. And really, this is key to inclusive design and research. So why inclusive design? Well, I first want to tell you about two stories that stick out in my mind for why this practice is so essential to me. The first is when I was learning about design through quite a formal and privileged route of going to an art and design university. In 2016, I was taking my first interaction design class, and we were learning the fundamental principles of UX and UI design. In this class, we were being taught about who to design for and how to identify use cases. I was shown a diagram with a regular bell curve on it, as pictured on this slide. The diagram depicts that the number of people the diagram depicts the number of people that are across a spectrum, and this communicates that most people fall within the middle. The people within the middle of the curve are the largest population, and they were emphasized on the image on this class. These were termed as, like average users, and we were told that we should not prioritize designing for those at the edges of the curve. They told us, serve those who are in the middle, and you'll cover 80% of everything you want, the market, the use cases, things like that. And the argument was that if you are designing for someone who isn't using your product for its core reasons, there's no point financially. This means that on the bell curve diagram, those who fall towards the edges of the bell curve, where there are less people, were termed as edge cases. These would be people who come across barriers in using certain services, And because there were less people, we were told never to design for those people. To this day, I remember so clearly, and it just didn't make sense to me. Why would we not focus on those who are towards the edge? But I now see that there are two things that are often conflated, but we need to dissect these. What is the difference between an edge case that is based on a task alone versus what tasks are being called edge cases because the person it benefits is seen as an outlier? If it's a task that wouldn't be done often by anyone, then yes, it doesn't make sense to focus excessive energy on that. But if it is a task that can be done less often, but if it's a task that is done less often because of specific need based on someone's identity, that is separate. And we should always work towards excellence in ensuring our designs work for everyone. And in this class, I initially learnt from, I chose to redesign a public service that focused on someone where English was not their first language. As a part of this user journey, selecting a language is not an edge case task because its care is the difference between someone being able to use your service or not. And I think we need to be clearer about what an edge case is. Later on in my education at this university, I was thankfully taught by other instructors about inclusive design, and we began to analyze our research and design practices more rigorously as well. Another experience that stands out for me is when I began my first full-time job in design. We were working on an exciting healthcare design project, and I was the designer on a talented team. The user research approach over the entire project was to recruit based on the demographics of the UK population. This means that, for example, we would ensure that 3% of participants are Black. Income ranges were also included to ensure that we were talking to lower income folks and not just including the middle class. Recruitment was done by a recruitment agency in this project as well. When I was told that this was the general idea, I had a hunch that this wouldn't be enough, as it didn't account for the health disparities that we saw within this area. But I was new to the job, new to the UK, and I was interested to learn from others and see how it went. Within the first round of user research, we went into a home on the outskirts of London. My colleague told me afterwards that it was a £1 million home, and the person that we interviewed mentioned owning it. They were included in the low income group from the recruitment agency because unfortunately for them, they had been laid off. So really in the end, a lot of our participants were quite similar, and we weren't able to truly get representation of the UK population. Therefore, from this experience, I recognize that we can't do research based on demographics. We need to ensure that we are being critical of our subject areas by engaging with the power dynamics and not shying away from that. People will fall into the cracks of recruitment because often reaching certain groups requires more relationship building than a recruitment agency can offer. Instead, we need to be critical about each area we are designing within. And for myself, inclusive design is all about engaging with power dynamics and analyzing them in every design area. Without this step, we will then end up designing for the status quo and recreating the same systems within which we live in. And in many design conferences, I often saw this area as a single topic within a much larger agenda about design. I saw the need to focus directly on inclusive design and especially try to highlight that there are many dimensions of what inclusive design means. Often, people equate accessibility with inclusive design, but inclusive design can be a lot wider than that, as we have many dimensions to our identities. We also need to consider gender, race, age, sexuality, and many other facets that change how people engage. From what I have seen, accessible design principles are well established, yet websites are not accessible, and there is still a lot of movement within this field and how we can work towards these standards. Given this is a specialist field, we can also learn so much and apply that to other areas of inclusion. So within this conference, I was hoping to bring together specialists within a wider area of work and see what practitioners were doing to ensure their design and research practices are inclusive and safe. However, I also want to acknowledge that inclusive design is only one step forward to ensuring that the workplace and our practices are improved. We also need to look at our workplaces and ensure that they are safe spaces for people to be heard. This is why I was so grateful in receiving submissions about inclusivity within the workplace as well. And I'm excited for Haniye, Holly, and Simone's talks as they will discuss this in particular. I think we have a lot to improve on. We also need a huge shift in the way that people can access design careers, with more emphasis on paid work experience and less gatekeeping through academic paths. I have seen an amazing movement to create a service design apprenticeship within the UK, and I hope more opportunities like this exist and that this project specifically is successful. Without these three things, inclusive design, an inclusive workplace, and a more equitable entrance into the field, I do not believe that our field is doing the best that it can. I hope that we can learn together within these next few elements about at least two of the three. So that's why I chose to focus this conference on inclusive design, and I'll now share with you our Magnify team. So this is some of the team that you'll see this week. So you'll see me, Claudia Hopkins, and you'll also see Laura Halloran and Anne-Marie Malumba, and they will be the hosts for some of the talk sections. And both of them were also on the panel to evaluate which submissions went ahead. And you'll also see Babak Saadat, and he will be at the panel, and we will be hosting that together. But behind the scenes, we've also had many people be involved as well, and I couldn't not mention them as well. So Sandra Han and Amala Anthony have been working on both the content strategy and putting up social media posts. Treat Fam was the designer of the logo and the brand and made that very successful. And McCall Artem and Kerem Dogurga were also on the panel to look at the different areas as well of the conference. And next, I also want to share my gratitude to some other people. And I couldn't go without mentioning our sponsor. So Fable is a digital accessibility platform powered by people with disabilities. And this platform's features include test that's on demand with people with disabilities and get feedback in 2 business days. They have 20 plus different assistive technology configurations across mobile and desktop that you can test with, and benchmark product usability to measure progress over time. So Fable have been instrumental in making this conference happen. They're ensuring that our speakers and facilitators can be compensated, and they are also have been helping me make sure that our plans for the conference are as accessible as possible within the budget that we have. So that was an amazing opportunity. And I'd like to say a special thanks out to Jackson Khan, Sam Proulx, and Kate Kalcevich. So thank you very much, everyone, from the Fable team. If you ever have accessibility questions, I really recommend going to their website and finding out more about this organization. I'd also like to thank the co-creators. So these are people who bought tickets at the highest rate, and that helped ensure that we could make it financially equitable for other people. So thank you so much to everyone who bought a co-creator ticket by the time I made this presentation. And now I'll be showing the introductions from each speaker. So I hope you enjoy and get warmed up for what's coming in the next 2 weeks.
Hi, everyone. I'm Marissa Cummings, and my talk is on safe spaces for raw research. My work focuses on inclusive design for people with health conditions and creating digital health tools. So I hope you enjoy it.
Hi, I'm Lee, and I'd like to introduce my talk, There is No Average Person, Why It's Critical to Design with Intersectionality in Mind. My motivation behind the talk stems from a sweeping industry-wide problem we need to address. Looking at websites alone as a lens, we can see that well over 90% of websites do not meet basic accessibility objectives, and accessibility is only part of the story. The result of our industry's collective inability to deliver products and services for all means that 90% of websites actively limit access, usability, and content engagement. This industry-wide problem doesn't begin and end with websites. It's a part of how we work in developing any products or services. We design for the average and avoid the edge cases. My talk highlights the flawed methodologies and the real data that shows there is no average to target or edge case customers to avoid. Your main takeaways: you'll have the evidence you need to bring this discussion back to your team members, to sell them on more inclusive practices with practical considerations around customer markets and segmentation, product and service planning, and the ROI of inclusive design. That way you'll be able to turn discussions from why would we invest in serving edge cases to why aren't we serving our whole market. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kate Kalcevich. I'm the head of services at Fable. We are an accessibility platform powered by people with disabilities. And so we help organizations to stop thinking about accessibility from a compliance perspective and instead focus on building incredible and accessible user experiences. And inclusive design and research is a really important part of that. And we help enable that work in many, many organizations. I was so excited to be invited by Claudia to be a panelist at the Magnify conference. I know Claudia from my time when I was a UX team lead at the Ontario Digital Service. And it was actually in the government, that was 20 years ago that I started working in the government, that I first learned about accessibility through the legislation. And I myself am a person with a disability. I wear hearing aids in both of my ears. And the more I learned about accessibility and the more I worked in the space, the more important it became to me. And it just became a focus of my career overall. And I'm hoping to share my experiences at the conference and also to learn from other people's experience and how inclusion and accessibility is being integrated into the UX space. It's going to be really exciting. Can't wait to see you.
Hi, I'm Ankita. I love making things happen and creating a positive impact through design. I innovate with Social Innovation Studio in India. We love designing solutions that enhance the quality of life for people. We got one life and we believe everybody deserves a good one.
Hi, my name is Apoorva. I'm a social designer innovating at Social Innovation Studio. As a designer, what motivates me is to create solutions with the people, for the people, of the challenges they face in everyday lives.
At the conference, we're going to be talking about design research for social taboos around type 1 diabetes. I'm someone in a way impacted by the condition. I don't really have type 1, but my elder sibling was diagnosed with it when she was 10 years old. Being someone with really high EQ, I could feel the challenges and struggle faced by my mother and my sister and really wanted to do something about it. I'm extremely grateful to have this platform where we can work on this and create a solution that could actually help and empower people struggling with the condition live a better life.
What's exciting about the conference is that there are diverse kind of projects, each addressing a social or a cultural problem, complex in its nature, or how we designers term it as a wicked problem. We're really looking forward to learning and getting inspired by their process, the participation they brought in from the community, the learnings, and especially the challenges they faced. Really looking forward to knowing about their journey more than the outcome.
Join us as we decode this in our talk.
Hello, everyone. My name is Martino. I'm an interdisciplinary designer, researcher, and facilitator. And at Magnify, I'll be hosting a workshop on October 7th called Care Community Action, Cards for Alternative Care Paradigms. I was really excited to be a part of Magnify this year because of its focus on inclusive design research practices, a topic that often gets pushed to the sides and corners of dialogues within the community of design. In my practice, I love to research and explore the everyday and the mundane as sites for change-making and community building. I want to invite others to join me in these investigations in an accessible and engaging manner. My hope is that as a designer, I'm able to foster spaces for people to investigate and better understand the ways in which our designed world shapes our lives and societies, and share tools and methods that enable people to take agency in the creation, use, and maintenance of design environments within their communities. My workshop at Magnify is an invitation to collaboratively explore the everyday world through a lens of care and design. I look forward to meeting many of you in the coming days and hope to see you on October 7th.
Hi, I'm Sam Proulx, the accessibility evangelist here at Fable. We're extremely glad to be part of the Magnify conference. At Fable, we focus on making sure that the voices of people with disabilities are heard in all parts of the product development lifecycle, from ideation to research to prototype reviews to development to alpha and beta testing, all the way up through QA and acceptance testing. That's why I'm really excited to be talking to all of you about how best to do research involving people with disabilities.
Amazing. I hope you enjoyed seeing all those videos of everyone. Thank you for them to preparing them. And the last call to action is to join us on our Slack channel. So this will be our way to connect participants and attendees across. So you'll receive an email to join the Slack channel, and here you can stay connected, you can say hello, and that's where you can introduce yourself and try to reach out to people to network. There's a channel where you can share what you learned, and this would be really helpful for both our speakers as well as myself, just to know like what's resonating with you. We have another channel, resources, where you can post any kind of resources that you come across. Our speakers can post their projects there. And we also have a channel on hiring. So if you're looking for any inclusive design experts, please, reach out there and try to make sure we're connected. So I hope to see you in Slack, and I look forward to seeing you over the next 2 weeks. And that's it for the conference opener. Thank you.